Welcome to the Town of Rockland Board of Selectmen meeting for Tuesday, May 16, 2023. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Mr. Childs, can you start us off?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be advised this open meeting is being broadcast live and recorded for playback by WRPS at youtube.com/WRPS Rockland. Please go to WRPSRockland.com for further information. First on the agenda, I have minutes, our community announcements. Doug, any?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, just a reminder that the Rockland Allied Veterans Council will be holding their Memorial Day observance on Memorial Day on the 29th at 11 a.m. at the Rockland Veterans Memorial Stadium. That's all I have.
Next on the agenda, minutes from May 2nd, 2023. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve minutes.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Next on the agenda, under new business, change of manager, 99 Restaurant, 29 Acorn Park Drive. Is there anybody here from the 99?
Yep.
Come on up.
Don't worry about this thing. It's fine.
Okay.
I'm Nathan Stanford.
Okay, yeah, if you want to just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on here.
So Nathan Stanford, I've been with the 99 for it'll be 11 years in August. Finally, I made my way back to Rockland. I'm class of 2000, a Bulldog, part of the championship football team in 99. So we got that. But no, I'm excited to finally get back here. I've always, kind of found my home in the South Shore. So hopefully we can work together, and anything you guys have and anything that needs to be brought to us, by all means, you can contact me. And I'm excited to be home because I'll always have a love for Rockland. So finally I got here. A couple detours on the 99 train, but I'm here.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Nathan? Okay, all the paperwork is filled out properly. Nathan is now on the liquor license. Anybody have I'll entertain a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Welcome home, Nathan.
All right, thank you. It's good to be home and nice weather. So, no, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, next on the agenda, one-day liquor license, fourth floor artist, 83 East Water Street, June 3rd, Jason Shaw.
Yes.
Jason, back again. Welcome.
Thanks.
So what do we got going on this time, Jason?
So another food and art night. It's going to be 6:30 to 10 this time. We have a new art director, so we have four new artists going in, and 6-course meal.
Anybody have any questions, comments?
Yeah, no, the last one was really cool, and the open house was amazing, and you guys are really killing it over there.
We're really loving it.
Yeah.
We love the partnership with Rockland. We had Barrel House Z in for the open studios.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
I play grater at the door. I don't know how many of you guys walked by me, but it was just energizing to be at the front door and to see everybody come in. I have a friend who lives in town who left the building. He's an artist. He left the building kind of floating. He was just so happy with what went on. So we're just excited to kind of keep doing different things and trying to keep interest in the arts. I know that there's already talks of one in October, kind of Halloween themed. So we're looking forward to another one after this too.
Great. Parking's challenging.
It is. We actually talked about that after Open Studios, like what can we do with that? So if anybody has any ideas, we'd love to hear them. We talked about maybe trying to hire a service to do valet, but like where's the lot? Everything's a little far away for a valet to walk to, So we, if anybody has any ideas, we'd love to hear it because it's constantly a thing, and we've heard like, my friend decided to leave because she couldn't find a parking spot. We've heard that. So
Okay, anybody have any other comments, concerns? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Okay, I got a motion, do I have a second? I got a motion from Tiffany. I have a
Second.
I have a second from Lori. All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, appreciate it.
Thanks.
Hope to see you guys there.
Yep.
Thanks,
Definitely,
Jason.
thank
Still some tickets available.
Awesome.
Next on the agenda, annual appointments, boards and committees. So I think what we'll do first is we'll just do the reappointments, because I understand there might be some discussion with any of the new appointments.
Okay.
So if I have a volunteer to read the reappointments, I think we just go down the list, and if
if
somebody
we have
wants to
some-
stop at some point, you can just stop and make a suggestion.
I have some questions on some of these. so-
Okay, yep.
Okay.
So who wants to volunteer to read?
Happy
Tiffany,
to.
thank you.
All right, so this is where we're starting. New appointments, Cultural Council.
We're going to do reappointments first, though.
Oh, pardon me. Reappointments, American with Disabilities Committee, 3-year term, John Melvin, 21 Bradford Street. Community Center Building Supervisory Committee, 3-year term, Jean Blaney, 118 Turner Road, Rich Furlong, 677 Union Street. Conservation Commission, 3-year term, Charlene Judge, 624 Forest Street. Constable, 3-year term, Adam Loomis, 67 Oldfield Road, Bridgewater, Mass. Council on Aging, 3-year term, Patricia Penny, 30 Center Avenue. John Conway, 76 Damon Road. Land Use Council, annual appointment, Galvin and Galvin, 10 Enterprise Street, Suite 3, Duxbury, Mass.
So at what point, if I have a question, do I ask the question at the end or when we get to it?
I'd say when we get to the person.
Okay. I have a question about doing any lawyer talk as part of this large reappointment. So I think I'd rather talk about them individually. So
Okay, so you have a concern about land use council?
about land use, town and labor,
Okay,
tax
so-
title,
so
all
let's-
three.
So let's start with land use then.
Okay.
What are your concerns with land use?
I'd like to know, at what point do we ever consider interviewing another firm, just in general? When was the last time we, I don't want to say put it out to bid, that's not the right way of saying it, but,
Well, it's not anything that typically goes out to bid. It's generally if we find ourselves in a situation where we're dissatisfied with the current firm that we have,
right.
then we'll start looking elsewhere, and it hasn't really been the situation. I mean, despite what you might read on social media, the attorneys that I think that we've appointed over the last, few years anyway, have done a pretty decent job. Doug, maybe you can speak
Yeah.
more to the municipal side of it?
Yeah, no, for sure. And I agree. I mean, it's exempt from procurement, so you don't need to go out to bid, but I know you're just using that language.
Yep.
But I agree with Mike's assessment where it's generally with attorneys, we're not looking just to kind of churn them over every couple of years because there's nuances to each town that takes firms a period of time to get accustomed to. And I would say in particular, especially as it relates to land use, Rockland is particularly unique. And the reason for that is, we've been trying to hire a town planner, but we've been unsuccessful so far. But we don't have a planning department, and that's highly unusual. So in most towns, the town planner does a ton of work. They attend all the zoning board meetings, all the planning board meetings, provide staff support, and it's very rare that an attorney would need to come to one of the planning or zoning board meetings just when there's a big public hearing, something like that. In Rockland, because we don't have that staff, our land use council has actually filled that role. So Attorney Galvin goes to every zoning board meeting and does all kinds of additional work that a planner should do, and that was part of my pitch for why we need a planner, because I think it's actually going to help our legal budget down the road, because then he won't need to come to those meetings. I say all that because it's an unusual arrangement that's, evolved over the years, and that's not something that's really, I'd want to start over with someone else with land use. There's also, we're in active litigation on a couple of big fronts, land use wise. So again, I don't think it would be a good time to really look, but I'm satisfied with Galvin and Galvin, and I think if you spoke with the other departments that deal with him, especially, the building department, the zoning board, I think that'll go be the same assessment. But if there's any specific kind of examples or concerns, I'm happy to talk about them either on or offline.
Yeah, I just was more wondering if it's good practice to revisit who we use for attorneys from time to time.
So we
That's
actually did a couple years ago. It was brought up back when Rich was on the board. Rich Penny, we had looked at a couple different communities and some of the local communities. I couldn't tell you specifically which firms, and I probably wouldn't do that in public setting anyway, but we looked at a couple of different firms as to who different towns use and what their level of satisfaction was based on having conversations with some of the members of the select board. And I think, Doug, you had talked to a couple town administrators, and in a lot of cases, the people that we had spoken to, they were looking to move on from their current council, and they were looking to retain either Galvin and Galvin or Clifford and Kenny. So we looked at it, but obviously at the same time we were in some very, very big litigation at the time, so none of that made any sense. But I think it's a good point. It's something that you always want to look at. But I think you look at it from a standpoint after you break it down and you hear if you have actually dissatisfaction. And to this point, having worked with both of those firms for the last 7 years, I haven't had any issues really with them.
If I could just add one other thing. In my last town, they used and continue to use KP Law. It used to be Copeland and Page. And so if you go to the MMA conferences or whatever, they have a big booth at the trade show and a big reception and everything. They're like the big dog. They probably cover half the towns in the entire Commonwealth or whatever. So it's interesting going from a town that used that very large firm to a town like Rockland that uses 2 small firms. Both Galvin and Galvin and Clifford and Kenny are very small, only a couple of lawyers in each shop, and they have many fewer clients. And it's interesting because, there's some advantages to the real big firms like KP Law, because they have dozens of attorneys and they have all kinds of specialists in every specific area, but they're based out of Boston, so they rarely come to you, and often because they have so many clients, the responsiveness can take longer. They're very qualified, they're excellent. So whereas compared to where we have these kind of smaller shops, it's been interesting for me because the responsiveness is great because they're local, they can show up in person, attend meetings when we need to, and because they have fewer clients, there's sort of better responsiveness. So it's not saying that that's the only way to go. KP Law is great, and that's again who probably half the towns go with. They're more money, and again, there's pros and cons to it. So I do have experience with the other side too. So if that's helpful, but I feel comfortable with both of those firms, continuing with both of those firms.
Well, could I make it a point that I don't believe that councils should be on this reappointment list. I think they should be done separately because we pay them. We ask the voters of this town to pay their salaries. So I think that everybody else that's on this list, they're all sitting on committees, they're all sitting on boards, and I think that's great. God bless the people that want to volunteer their time. But I honestly think that councils should be looked at and voted for separately. Because I've heard enough people talking about how we tend to rubber stamp everything. And I would love to be able to respond to people that know. We analyze everything. These people have volunteered their service. So by reappointing them, we're acknowledging the fact that, God bless them, they give up their time, they give up their effort, they're committed to this town. But I do think that councils should be looked at separately. I don't think they should be on this list.
And that's the board's prerogative. I mean, this, just to be clear, I didn't start this process. I inherited, this is the past practice of the Rockland Board of Selectmen, so you guys are free to approach the appointments however you'd like to do it.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I mean, Director of Emergency Management, that's, Scott's the fire chief, and he gets paid, and that kind of gets lumped in with that. Fence viewer, that's our building superintendent, so it's part of his daily task. It's not being done on his own time. It's not volunteer to be the fence viewer. Alternate fence viewer, that's our wiring inspector, and that's probably being done during regular business hours. Forest fire warden, also our fire chief, so being paid as forest fire warden. So I mean, you can go up and down this list, and I think that you see that that's the case with a lot of different things here. And I get what you're saying, Donna, but I also don't think that we should every single year bring out our attorneys and have them rebid for the position if we're happy with the job that they've done to that point. And I know there's a lot of different conversations that are had out there and in most cases, those conversations aren't accurate. I think people that have been on the board for a while, I think, Donnie, you've expressed that there were a lot of things that you felt you had taken kind of somewhat of an opinion on, and then after you got on the board, and Lori, I think you were the same, you felt like, oh, well, that was totally different than what was being said in public or on social media. And I don't want to speak for anybody, but I think it's one of those things. I haven't had an issue. I wouldn't say it's a rubber stamp. I think if there was certainly an issue that we had with any of them, none of you guys have mentioned prior to today that there was an issue. The agenda was out last week with the appointments on the agenda. Nobody mentioned it to me that there was an issue with them being on the agenda. We did this exact same process last year with all but John being on the board. I don't know why today is an issue. I have no problem if you guys want to table that, the land use and town labor. We can do that at our next meeting, and we can ask them to come in and present. And maybe Doug, if you want to go through the steps again that we did a couple years ago and find a couple other towns that have some different people that they use that are comparable to size and scope that town of Rockland, and we can go through those steps as well. I think tax title is a little bit different because tax title is being presented by a department head that's duly elected, and they have done the research on this, and they're presenting to us what the results of the research are.
They're presenting one choice, though. That's my problem with that when we get that far.
But that's also the duly elected position, and we don't really have any control over the elected officials.
But we appoint the tax title attorney.
I understand we appoint the tax title attorney, but we've always deferred to the department head and respected the expertise of the department head, and the fact that Allison's been in the job for a while now, and she has done her due diligence and has made the phone calls to the different communities and has come up with a different decision for tax title. And from my standpoint, like I said, I'm not the treasurer, and I have no intention to start dictating to the treasurer, the separately elected treasurer, what to do or who to work with. If they've come to us with a proposal, for who they think is they're most comfortable working with, then I think it's up to us to support and respect their decision.
So why are we the ones making the decision then? Maybe I don't know enough about the process.
It's just the way it's written in the charter.
Mm-hmm.
Right, in the town charter, it says that the Board of Selectmen appoint legal counsel.
But, like the same way when we have an appointment for, say, the school committee comes to us with an opening, it's an unwritten policy, but it's a policy where we respect that department, and we follow suit to whoever the majority of their board goes with. And, I mean, if we have a 4-0 vote, well, there's 5 of us that could turn around and vote 5-4, and then now we're dictating to them who's going to be on their board. And I think it's the same case here where, if the elected official comes to us and says that this is who they want to work with, then it's up to us to support that person with a vote in favor.
Mike, if I could just make one point, I actually feel like the discussion that this is kind of segued into the tax title attorney kind of addresses part of Donna's comment, which was, not kind of rubber stamping things in a long list of everybody, because this is sort of an example where clearly, staff are satisfied with Labor Council, General Counsel, and Land Use Council, but we'd like to go in a different direction with Tax Title Council, and we did the research, and we've come up with someone, and if you give the person an opportunity to present and ask some questions, I think you'll be extremely impressed. So I think it's kind of an example of how it's not really a rubber stamp process when we would like to move in a different direction, we're proactive and we present somebody very qualified. So I just thought I'd tie that together.
I had 2 cents to throw in. So if Clifford and Kenny and Galvin came here for our next meeting and made a presentation and such, what would that cost per hour? What would that cost taxpayers for that?
Yeah, I'd have to remember what their hourly rate is. It could be, I don't know, $170 an hour.
So they would charge us to come in and ask to get reappointed?
I don't know. I'm just responding to Lori's
Well,
question.
that would factor in my decision if they charged us to sit here and talk to us about getting reappointed.
Well, I know one thing they don't charge us for is any phone calls. which is always pretty good, because I know some other communities where they make a phone call and they're billed for the phone call. So,
Yeah, to John's point, they probably wouldn't charge us. I
Okay.
was
All right, I'm
just
just
narrowly
saying, if they
responding
did,
to
that
Lori's
would- that would
question,
be a
you know?
problem.
But
So,
again, I mean, if anybody, I'd love to, I wasn't expecting the conversation to go this way, but if anybody has any particular concerns about Labor Council, Land Use Council, General Council, I'd love to talk about that. Or if it's just a matter of principle that every so number of years you should make a change, then that's another perspective. But if there's any particular reasons, I'd be happy to talk about it as long as they're not like executive session material.
Right, and if I may just make a question, my question about bringing that up about the land use and these two, town and labor, I'm curious what your protocol would be in terms of your recommendation. If this isn't what you'd like us to do, what are you looking to do?
Well, I think we should have a separate discussion on these, like Donna mentioned, that some of these reappointments are pretty obvious, but I'm not sure that the lawyers are as obvious as you all think they are.
but,
So-
well, hold on, but this is what I think where you all think they are is misrepresented. This is on a list of reappointments, and this is the discussion that's being had. We don't discuss anything behind the scenes. This is done in public. So this is the public discussion.
Okay.
Nobody said anything. Nobody challenged the agenda when it was put on the agenda to be discussed. There's no rubber stamp that says that everybody that's on here for reappointment is automatically reappointed. If we sit back and we say, you don't want to reappoint that person, then we can put it to a vote, or we can sit back and say, all right, well, we'll table those couple appointments and we'll bring it to our next meeting, and we'll dissect it, and we'll get as much information as we can. We'll get the breakdown and the analysis of costs for them as opposed to another board, and we can go that route, and we can go through those steps. My thought was we put it on the agenda every year, and it doesn't get challenged because typically, to this point, as far as I remember, there haven't been concerns with the work that's been being done. If that's changed and we want to talk about it some more, then that's fine. This is the place though that we talk about it,
Right,
And
I agree.
Like I said, a conversation, a text message, John. If you sent me a text and said, "Hey, listen, I got some concerns about this," then that's okay. Then maybe we don't put it on as a separate thing, or
Okay.
Donna, same thing. If you send me something saying, when you see the agenda, hey, can we just take that off and have that as a separate discussion point the next week? Then, okay, well, this is the place that we're going to discuss that. That's what this is, out in the open, But like I said, I have no problem if we want to take land use and town labor off. I just think, we've got a department head here tonight that's done the work and has, made the decision based on their research that they want to make a change on the tax title council. And I think we ought to respect that her right, and the charter says that she's responsible for the treasurer's office and things that go on, and I think we should respect her right to choose the tax title council that she's looking for and follow suit and appoint.
I don't disagree with that. I would like to have some discussion about it when we do go to talk about it, because I'm assuming you skipped over this because we were going to have some discussion.
I figured that there would be some conversation about that anyway. So
I would like to, I guess I'll make a motion to table land use and town and labor council to a future meeting.
okay, so Doug, we have them under contract until July 1 anyway, right?
I think it might actually be June 1, so maybe you want to just vote to keep them under contract until
Until the next meeting.
Until the next
To extend them,
meeting.
okay.
Yeah.
So I'll entertain a motion to approve, to continue their appointment until our next meeting for both land use and
I'll
town
make
and
that
labor.
motion.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all those in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Next meeting, okay, and we'll table them, so Tiffany, if you want to continue with Director of Emergency Management?
Director of Emergency Management, Management Annual Appointment, Scott Duffy, 86 Stanton Street. Fence Viewer Annual Appointment, Thomas Rubel, 32 Niles Street, Abington, Mass. Alternate Fence Viewer Annual Appointment with the approval of Building Inspector Tom Rubel, Jim Paul, 162 Webster Street. Forest Fire Warden Annual Appointment, Scott Duffy, 86 Stanton Street. Historical Commission 3-year term, Peter Dow, 31 Union Street, Jim Paul, 162 Webster Street. Memorial Committee annual appointment, Jeffrey Najarian, 22 Bradford Street. Tony Materna, 419 Market Street. John Melvin, 21 Bradford Street. Richard Laurier Jr., 1 Leah Drive. Old Colony Planning Council Area Agency on Aging annual appointment, Andrew McCarthy, 15 Old Country Way. Old Colony Elder Services Board Director, Victoria Dybel, 678 Hingham Street. Open Space Committee, 3-year term, Kathy Kirby, 162 Liberty Street. Pam Titus, 864 Union Street. Rockland Recreation Committee, 3-year term, Michael Garofalo, 83 South Douglas Street. Sealer Weights and Measures Inspector annual appointment, Thomas Rubel, 32 Niles Street, Abington, Mass. Southfield Redevelopment Board, Rockland Rep, 3-year term, Kelly O'Brien McKinnon, 42 Plain Street. Tree Warden annual appointment, Dave Taylor, 328 Summer Street. Plumbing Inspector annual appointment with the approval of Building Inspector Tom Rubel, William Callahan, 92 Center Ave. Alternate Ed Geswald, 44 Pondbrook Drive, Hanover, Mass. Wiring Inspector annual appointment with the approval of Building Inspector Tom Rubel, James Paul, 162 Webster Street. Michael Dutton, 8 Chris Roy Drive. Alternate Nicholas Erner, 203 Beat Street. Zoning Board of Appeals, 5-year term, Greg Tanzi, 9 Barstow Lane.
Okay, so I will entertain a motion to approve those reappointments,
Motion to approve.
not including land use and town and labor.
And for me, not including Vicky.
Yep. I'll entertain a motion to approve. I got a
Motion to
Do I have a
approve,
second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, next, under new appointments, Cultural Council, 3-year term, Carol Hausman, 75 Ridgewood Drive. Carol, you here? Carol, you want to come on up? Yeah, you might as well.
Yes, sir.
Carol, if you just want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
It's Carolyn Hausman. I'm a retired social worker for most of the visiting nurse agencies in the South Shore. I've been a member of the Marshfield Agricultural Commission for 10 years. I've been active at the Duxbury Senior Center, the chairman of the Lifelong Learning there. I'm currently a volunteer at the Arts Complex Museum in Duxbury and the Norwell James Library, which is a cultural center as well as a library. I'm very interested in books. The older I get, the less I'm able to do very heavy gardening. So I really like to do more in the world of intellect and the arts.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Carolyn?
Thanks for stepping up.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for
That's it.
stepping up, yeah.
Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to appoint Carolyn to the Cultural Council for 3-year term.
Motion to appoint.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Thank you.
That's unanimous.
Thank
Carolyn.
you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, Tax Title Council Annual Appointment, Capola and Capola, David Capola Esquire, 40 South Street, Marblehead, Mass. New appointment. I'm actually going to ask our treasurer, Allison Sullivan, to come up as well.
And maybe while Allison's coming up, if I can just give an intro
Yep.
as you're coming. So just to kind of tee it up, I won't speak for Allison, but as the board knows, Allison's had to work very hard over the last couple of years, but there's been periods of time where she's been extremely short-staffed in her office, and at one point was literally completely by herself. And I want to commend her for her work ethic and everything she's done to keep things going. But the way we got from there to here was, Allison initiated to me that, the town had been well-served in the past with our prior tax title attorney, but she was seriously considering moving in another direction. And I think part of what she'll talk about is being a relatively new treasurer. She thinks, another firm might be able to give her kind of a different level of support and responsiveness that might help her continue to move forward. So she asked me, since she was really so busy with everything she was doing, if I could talk to my contacts with other town managers in the region, because I have a big network of South Shore town managers. So I did that. I reached out to everyone, and it was really interesting. Literally, all roads led to Coppola and Coppola. I mean, they are the preeminent firm in the state that does this work, or at least in this whole region of the state. So when I learned that, I gave Allison that info. She then also reached out to her treasurer contacts throughout the state. Similarly, nothing but strong recommendations for that firm. So I reached out to them. Dave Coppola, who's in the audience tonight, Allison and I interviewed him. We had a great long conversation with him, and Allison asked all the technical questions. I was, listening more than talking. But we were just very impressed with kind of all aspects of his knowledge, his approach, everything about how they do their business. So with that, based on our kind of background checks and our interview with him and just the number of other towns that he represents, that's how we got here. And so maybe with that, I'll turn it over to Allison to see if she wants to kind of supplement with any other comments.
I just want to start by saying, this wasn't a personal decision. I didn't take this decision lightly. I respect Attorney Brown and her 20 years of working with the town of Rockland. I appreciate, I worked well with her. However, there comes a time where I just feel like it would be a good time for Rockland to get a new set of eyes on what we have going on for tax title and looking at the old and the new properties that we have moving into tax title. And I was very impressed with what Coppola & Coppola had to offer. Like Doug said, reached out to people and nothing but great things to say. So it's my recommendation at the time that, we move forward with the appointment of Coppola & Coppola.
Okay. I'll now just invite David Coppola. If you want to just come up, and you can just sit in the front seat probably, or Allison, if you want to jump in the front seat and give him the microphone, that'd be great. Just obviously, David, nice to thank you for taking the time to come down to the meeting. I'm just going to open it up to questions from the board for Mr. Coppola.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Actually, before we do the questions, I guess I'll allow you to introduce yourself.
Absolutely.
And tell us a little bit about your firm and what you guys do, what your specialties are.
So my name is David Coppola. I'm an attorney, and our firm is Coppola & Coppola. It's a family firm. I went into business with my family, and they've been operating a tax title firm for about 70 years in the state. And our primary practice is to represent municipalities around the entire Commonwealth in the litigation and collection of unpaid real estate taxes, from representing the collector and putting the lien on the property that flows into the treasurer's position to foreclosure of the tax titles as an end result, and hopefully before that time to get them paid. Our office consists of 3 attorneys and 4 paralegals. We're located in Marblehead, Massachusetts, so we're in the North Shore. But it's a type of law where if you're foreclosing on your tax titles, everything flows through the land court in Boston. So we have good proximity to Boston. Every now and then we get out for a field trip to different communities. But generally, all our work is done in the land court in Boston and various registries around the state. So I had a meeting with Doug and Allison in November. I felt that it went very well, and I was appreciative that they are recommending me now to represent the town.
Now, does your firm work on any other types of law, or is tax title your main focus?
It's 99% of our focus, yes.
Anybody else have any other questions? Tiffany?
I do. Thank you for being here. I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more about the other municipalities that you do. I saw the list was quite extensive, but in working with so many, I'm sure that helps with your efficiency and whatnot. But I'd like just to hear a little bit more about your experience with that.
Sure. Each municipality has their unique challenges where they are in the tax title process. And there are some communities that we work with when we come in and work with them, or when we pick up working with them after kind of a lag period of time, because they haven't used us, we have challenges of trying to catch up on tax title. For the communities that we, meaning catching up on tax title, there is a delinquency that exists and compounds, and it becomes a heavy debt for the town, that it's harder to collect those taxes. And so the end result is generally foreclosure. For the municipalities that we work with continually on a consistent basis throughout the year, where they pay attention to tax title and they make diligent efforts each year to collect those taxes, have a very high rate of the taxes being paid and a low rate of foreclosure. And that's really the idea. The spirit of this whole section of Mass General Laws is to get those taxes paid rather than have the municipality foreclose on the properties. And so what we find and what we always recommend to our clients is that they keep a schedule every year with trying to collect delinquent taxes, from the collector's side to putting liens on the properties that go unpaid for an entire year, and then beginning right away on the treasurer's side to try and collect those taxes. And we recommend doing that for the basic principle that if the debt is addressed immediately, it's much easier for the taxpayer to end up redeeming the property and paying the taxes than it is if it's left there, it's forgotten about, and then the town tries to collect those taxes maybe 5-10 years later. So some towns keep up with the schedule, and we find there's a good rate of return with getting the taxes paid. Other municipalities have a different philosophy with putting liens on the property but not wanting to foreclose or address collecting the delinquency. So there are different variations in each town. We represent large cities, City of Lawrence, City of Brockton, around the state, and they have no choice but to keep up on their tax titles because it can get out of hand. With small towns, it becomes, once you get into a process of collecting those taxes on a yearly basis, on a set schedule, it becomes easier and easier for the town to keep up with the delinquency.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Yeah, so I see you work with a ton of towns all over the place.
Yes.
How large is your firm, and what's your responsiveness like?
Sure. So our firm is 3 attorneys and 4 paralegals. We all kind of contribute to working on each case. It's not a firm where we have one attorney assigned to one case. We all are involved with processing each case from start to finish. And we find that these the size of our firm works well with the type of law that involves the litigation of tax titles, because it is a process in which you need to slowly move the cases along, not slowly, but move the cases along from step to step. And in doing so, we generally have a lot of communication with municipalities and the taxpayers in the process. Specifically, when we end up filing cases, the property owners get notified of the foreclosure case, and we end up having avenues of communication with them, with the town. And what we find is best is to respond to every inquiry, whether it's from the town, the treasurer's office, or the collector's office, or the taxpayer or a mortgage holder, as quickly as possible, because that gives the likelihood and the ability, if this is going to get redeemed, taxes are going to be paid, it's better to act quickly. And we, as a business practice, our customer care, we try and respond to emails as quickly as possible.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just to follow up on your question about keeping to the schedule, how does your firm help with that? Because to me, that would be primarily up to the collector and the treasurer to make sure that they're doing their job. How do you help them with that?
Well, we, on the collector's side, one of the areas of the law that we specialize in
is assisting collectors in putting the lien on the property and making the tax takings. So we, every year after the fiscal year ends, June 30th, and the demands go out and they're delinquent taxes, what we like to do is reach out to the municipality to see if they're ready to move forward with their tax takings. Generally, if a town is on a schedule, they will be making tax takings, putting liens on properties, probably within 6 to 9 months after the end of the fiscal year, at the same time each year. So a lot of municipalities, we assist them in putting the liens on the property, which involve researching the titles, making sure that the town has validly assessed the taxes to the correct party, and then drafting the proper legal notices that go in the newspaper and posted around town, to drafting the actual instrument of taking if the town wants us to do that. A lot of towns have their own software that does that. And then to recording the tax taking. But what we try and do is we work with the collector to get them on a schedule. And once the collector makes that tax taking and really solidifies that and records it at the Registry of Deeds, it protects the town forever to secure their ability to collect the taxes there. And then within that 6-month period after the tax taking, the lien is put on the property, that's a great time for the treasurer, once those liens are put on, it's transferred over to the treasurer, to begin trying to collect the real estate taxes, because there is only 1 year that's probably delinquent, and there's very, minimal interest, and that would be a time in which a property owner would be able to address that issue, whether they need to look into sell the property, refinance, get a loan. So that's generally what we like to do, and we find that it really reduces the town's debt and the town's tax title, and in the treasurer's duty moving forward to have that off their plates with collecting debt that has compounded for many, many years.
Okay. So would you say that your working relationship with the collector is as important as the treasurer?
I would say so, yeah. And it really depends on what the town's needs are. In a lot of municipalities, the collector and the treasurer are one and the same person. Right. So if the collector side has a schedule that they stick to, and that's what they like to do and proceed with putting liens on properties, we're here to support them and give any support they would like in that process. We can be as involved as they want with handling the entire process for them, or not involved at all if they prefer to do it on their own, and then we just move forward with on the treasurer's side with trying to collect the taxes and filing foreclosure cases and moving there. Yeah.
Have you spoken with our collector?
I have not.
Allison, you had made our collector aware that you were going to make a switch, and she didn't voice any objection.
No, not aware.
Did you talk to her about it?
Yes,
I mean,
several occasions.
okay, all right.
Yes.
If there are cases out there that are pending, would
Yes.
your company be able to take them over from where they are, as opposed to having to go back and research them from the beginning? I'm just concerned about duplicating payments. We've already paid for something up to here.
Sure.
Is your company able to take it over from here and go forward? Or will you have to start from scratch?
We would take over the existing cases by filing an appearance by the town, and we would be able to take them from the point where they are and move forward with the cases. We would obviously review the cases to see what's needed in order to move the cases forward, but that would be the process in which we would take over the cases. We wouldn't restart them.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Nope.
Okay. So, I'll entertain a motion to approve Cupola and Cupola.
Motion to approve Coppola and Coppola.
I've got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, Board of Selectmen liaison discussion. So we did away with liaisons, a few years back, and then, we had some turnover on the board last year, and I thought it was a good idea to kind of bring the liaisons back, specifically as it pertained to the infrastructure departments and needs. So I would just say, I think we should bring them back, but I think if you guys, over the next couple weeks, before our next meeting, if you just send me an email with what your interests are and what you're interested in doing, and we'll try to, sit down at our next meeting, and I'll come up with kind of a collective of what was sent to me from everybody, and then we can kind of discuss, as a group, and then we'll make the appointments, okay?
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay, next on the agenda, other new business not reasonably anticipated. Doug?
Yeah, so at the very last minute, we did get a request from Article 15 Brewing, and it should be in your binder after the letter E. It's a request for a one-day liquor license application for this upcoming weekend on the 21st from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. The location is 34 School Street, which is the VFW. There's some sort of Warner paranormal event. This is, was a last-minute request that wasn't submitted in time to be on the agenda. When they got it, Sue Ide in my office did ask someone from Article 15 to be present to be able to discuss this, and I don't think anybody is here from them, but they were requested to be here. So it's your prerogative on if you want to proceed.
Yeah, I knew it was a last-second thing, and I knew that when Sue called me this afternoon to see if we could put it on, I asked if they were possibly able to, but I don't know what's going on at the brewery necessarily tonight. This is a business in town. Warner Paranormal works out of the Hearts of Hall, the GAR Hall, and I don't see any issue. Article 15 has applied for licenses for every single one-day liquor license event, as far as the farmers market, Rockland Day, etc. So I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
I have a motion, I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor?
Yep.
That's unanimous. Next on the agenda, under old business, at our last meeting, I had mentioned the MBTA letter of support discussion, commuter rail safety concerns. As we know, a couple weeks ago, a resident of Whitman was able to drive onto the train tracks in Abington. The Abington selectmen have been going back and forth with the MBTA for a very long time, trying to improve the safety of the crossings. Currently, they're looking for a 4-lane crossing bar, like a 4-lane gate. Currently, they only have a single gate on either side, really a half gate on both sides. So I think out of the 32 train accidents since they came back to the South Shore, 19 of them have occurred in Abington, and all 19 have occurred in the same stretch of train tracks between the old Skilling's Auto on Plymouth Street and the Muster Field over by Spruce Street area. So all I was looking to do is have Doug and his team draft a letter of support of the Abington Selectmen. Obviously, you're friendly enough with Scott that you can kind of touch base, and he can send you what their letter is, and if you can put something together, and then we'll just vote to send it off at our next meeting.
Yep.
If you put that
Yep.
together.
And just as an update, we are working on it. Jenna's already reached out to Abington to understand exactly what it is that they're requesting, so we make sure we're in alignment with whatever their requests are. And she's also looking at who the best person to send it at the MBTA is. So we're working on it, and we'll have something for the next meeting.
So I just want to make sure that I had you guys, your support to draft this letter before we just start drafting letters and sending them, and somebody says, well, I'm against that,
Yeah, also looking forward, if the MBTA blows us off again, since, Rockland residents, Abington residents, I really feel should work together on this. I don't see why we can't have a by-town fundraiser to try to buy them and just
Yeah, I
within
think
themselves.
this point, I mean, I agree, Lori,
Yeah.
obviously, but it shouldn't be on the towns to do it. It's the MBTA that
Well-
they've created this hazard and
Well,
continue to
yeah.
refuse to improve it, right?
Okay,
You know?
I mean, maybe call
I-
Solve at
yeah.
7.
You know, I
You
think
know?
I think that's been done. You know,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
you know, a lot of people have looked at this area of track, and the MBTA, their response continues to be, well,
Yeah.
we're following federal guidelines, and the federal guideline that they're following is the absolute minimum.
Right,
know.
so who can we approach in the feds? I mean, who's there?
Well, I think as we get further down the line, I think right now, I think we just, authorize this letter, we send this letter off, and
Okay,
then we go from there.
Right.
And hopefully, they start hearing from, I mean, what do we consider an MBTA adjacent community, right? And they
Yep.
keep reminding us of that.
Right.
So if they're gonna start demanding things from us, maybe we can demand some things from them to ensure the safety of our residents.
Sure.
And as a reminder, they do have new leadership at the MBTA, so there could be
Yep.
a different level of
It could be.
responsiveness
Right.
now.
Yep,
okay.
so, I don't know if I need a vote, but, I'll take a vote, so. Yeah, I'll entertain a motion
Yeah, motion.
to send a letter or to draft and review at the next meeting. So I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Yep.
Unanimous. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Doug, other old business not reasonably anticipated?
Had none.
None. Town administrators report and correspondence.
Thanks, Mike. Just a couple things. First, I want to thank the Rockland Garden Club, I think also known as the Rockland Gardeners, for the beautiful flowers they planted outside of Town Hall. And I checked, and the individuals involved in this group that helped with this is Allison Phipps, Rachel Gear, Julie Snee, Liza Landy, Chris Landy, Allie Landy, Mary Boucher, Joanne Kinsman, Deb Shuttlesworth, Sarah Clark, Lindsay Cook, and Allie Hurley. So I just want to personally thank them. They look really great, and we appreciate them volunteering to do that. Next, I want to thank our IT director, Gino Chingris. He's agreed to attend a 10-week cybersecurity training that has been made available to all Plymouth County municipal technology professionals. So this is something that is being done in concert with the state, Plymouth County, and Bridgewater State University. It's being held at a new tech center at Bridgewater State. And it's very intensive. It's 10 weeks. Each week it's one full day. I think in total it's like over 43 hours. And it's pretty intensive. It's very sophisticated training, only for professionals like Gino. Plymouth County, I want to thank them. They're paying for 2/3 of the cost. We only have to pay for 1/3, so the cost is not too bad. And this is important stuff because, as we all see in the news and we know from our own experience, ransomware and other hacks are targeting every type of entity, especially municipalities. So this type of stuff will help us stay ahead of the curve. So I want to thank Gino for doing that, because he obviously has to balance all the rest of his work in addition to that, but this kind of training is important. And then lastly, I just wanted to touch on 2 items relating to town meeting. I know I missed the last meeting, and so hopefully I'm not going to duplicate what was said at our last meeting here. First is with the article that passed for the sewer department that authorized the $1.5 million of borrowing for sewer. So there's going to be a lot of work that I'm going to have to do with the town treasurer to help set up the issuance of the bonds with our financial advisor. So I set up a meeting with the sewer commission chairman to make sure I have all the facts straight about projected cash flow and exactly what the uses are, et cetera. So then we'll get working with a financial advisor. We'll probably have to get another bond rating, et cetera. So there's a lot of work that we're going to be doing to help the sewer department get access to those funds, which will be combined with the ARPA money that the Board of Selectmen has authorized. And then lastly, I wanted to follow up on the comments that were made by one person at town meeting regarding the fire station project specifically. Obviously, I was disappointed in the result of the vote. I think that's obvious, and I certainly respect town meeting voters and their expression of concern over the affordability of the project. That's a totally legitimate concern and an understandable perspective, which we get. So I have no issue with people saying it's something they didn't feel they could afford. But in particular, the one comment and the one thing that I regret is that the comment relating to kind of alleging that the part of the design of the building that included a mechanics bay there was a comment made that the concern would be that all firefighters were just going to use that for their own personal use, and it wasn't one of the reasons why that shouldn't be voted for. And to be honest, that's my only regret from town meeting, was that I didn't speak specifically to that point. Chief Duffy got, kind of beat me to the punch. He got up very quickly and was very calm and professional. You were all there, so I don't have to repeat what he said for you. So he responded really appropriately. But I was upset at that, and it's just the dynamics are awkward at town meeting, because when there's a screen, I'm stuck in the corner by the moderator, the chief's at the other end, so I just wasn't really able to jump in. I let it move on. But I wanted to say something tonight publicly about that, because I feel strongly about it. So for me, that type of comment, I think, is totally inappropriate and really unfair to our firefighters. All our firefighters are honest, and they operate with complete integrity. And, just to state the obvious, our firefighters in Rockland, as they do in every other community, they literally risk their lives every single day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, to save our lives. And I just don't think it's appropriate, and I think it was really unfair that they were maligned to say that they would misuse this aspect of the proposed project for their own personal use, their own personal benefit. That would never, ever happen. And to be clear, the Mechanics Bay, if we ever do build this project someday in the future, and if there is a Mechanics Bay included, the whole point of that part of the proposal is to save taxpayers' money. That's the point of that part of the project, to save taxpayers' money. So I won't belabor it anymore, but, I was disappointed that I wasn't able to kind of speak back to that, and so I just wanted to use this opportunity tonight, really mainly just to support the men and women of our fire department and thank them what they do, and to apologize for that. Mm-hmm. And with that, that's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Selectmen's comments and opinions expressed by individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of the Board of Selectmen. The opinions and comments of only the individual member. Selectman Edward.
Okay, first I'd like to publicly thank Laura Brown for her 20-plus years of serving as our tax title attorney. When I started as a newly elected treasurer 11 years ago, I leaned on her really heavily, and she was awesome with teaching me what I needed to know about tax title. I just wanted to explain my no vote a little bit. I don't doubt that Coppola & Coppola is very capable. I've heard good things about them as well. My no vote was more, one, because I don't believe the collector was included in the interview process, and she should have been. Secondly, I believe we only really interviewed one firm, and I have a problem with that. And I think we should have had more than one choice here. So, like I say, I'm sure Mr. Coppola, Attorney Coppola, I'm sure you're going to do a great job for us, and don't take my no vote as anything personal. It was just more the process that I had a problem with. And that's it.
So are you suggesting that Allison didn't do her due diligence?
I'm suggesting that the collector should have been more involved in the process. I don't know enough about the...
Was that the process when you were the treasurer, or was that your choice, your appointment?
Laura Brown was here when I got here, and we never...
But we reappointed every year, right?
We never actually talked about it, so...
But it came forward every year for us to reappoint.
Correct, but when we talked about making a change, if we were to talk about making a change, I would have wanted Judy to have been involved in that process, not just me. It shouldn't have been me driving the process. So I'm disappointed that she wasn't included. And that's why I asked the question. He hadn't even talked to her. And as far as I know, she wasn't included in the interview. It was Doug and Allison, and Judy should have been included in that. So that was the main reason for my no vote, in case anyone's wondering. So.
Selectperson Childs?
Yeah, to your point, Doug, about the Mechanics Bay, I wanted to expand a little further on that. I was talking to Crystal Cameron, and she's a perfect person to ask about the Mechanics Bay, because Abington has one, a town Mechanics Bay, and Rockland doesn't. And I know she said she just had the same repair on different pieces of equipment, one in Abington for their equipment. I forget, it was a loader or something like that. And then one in Rockland, it was one thing that needed to be adjusted on it or fixed on it, and it was $7,000 for that one that Rockland had to pay, and Abington didn't, because they had a mechanic on duty. So if anybody out there wants to know about a Mechanics Bay and for large vehicles and the costs involved in that, Crystal is a perfect person to consult with that. That's the first thing. Second thing, my sister-in-law Vicky and I walk the rail trail every morning. And a couple days ago, we were crossing in front of the crosswalk in front of the senior center, and we were halfway through, and the automatic flashers went on. And the guy didn't stop. He just kept going, and I was like, what the heck? You know, like, well, what the heck was a nice way to say it. And he just flips me the finger and keeps going, and Vicky took out her phone to record it, and he just sped up. He got faster as he went down the street. So I'm wondering if, and a lot of, I put it on Facebook, a lot of residents were, it was a really lively discussion about it, and one resident suggested not speed bumps, but one of those hump things through the very dangerous crosswalks along the rail trail. So I guess Dave would have knowledge about that, or maybe we could somehow work something like that into the budget, because I hear, and I want to give a shout out to Chief Zioli, because I let him know about it, and he put one of the walker signs in that crosswalk, and in the mornings, at least for the last couple days, they've had a patrolman out there just checking out what's going on. So, you know, the Rockland police are being proactive about it as well. So that's it.
Thank you, Ward. Select person Shorto.
I'd also like to thank Laura Brown for her 28-plus years of service. I worked in the treasurer's office for 8 years, so I got to know her, and I know the quality of the work that she did. Nothing against you. I absolutely think that the treasurer should have someone that she's comfortable working with. So, welcome to town. And that's basically all I have.
Thank you, Donna. Selectman Needham.
I would like to thank Select Woman Childs for following up with that. I do feel, just as somebody who walks my daughter to school often, and I'm also a dog walker, the speed at which people continuously drive down main streets and side streets is alarming. It's absolutely alarming. So thank you for following up with that. And that's about it today.
It's funny that that's a topic. I almost got hit walking across the street on the way here tonight. And actually, you saved me one night. Remember that?
I did.
I stepped off the curb and you pulled me back in as the guy came flying past at like 70 miles an hour at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you shut the lights off so you didn't see me.
Right.
Yeah.
No, it's a small town, and
The guy probably
we
knew it
all
was
have
me.
to take heed.
Yeah.
Yep.
The guy probably knew it was me anyway. So, you know, I don't have any comments tonight. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Select person Childs.
Yep.
Select person Howard.
Yes.
Select person Shorto.
Yep.
Select person Needham.
Yes.
And myself. That's a meeting. Good night. Thank you much.